All right. Speak. If you have something to say, if you'd like to chime in. It's often sometimes helpful. It's almost always helpful. Sometimes people will come in and they'll restate what I said in other terms, and I think it can make it a lot easier for people to get like your own take on this. So that's also an option to put it into your own words or to check out your own words with me if you want to do that. Or take us wherever you want to go because we've been in this class now. This is the 7th week and you've been noticing a lot of different things. So, Bryony, go ahead.
I am so happy that was recorded.
Me too.
Yeah, I couldn't stop smiling inside and out. And I think part of what's touching me is this when you share your own humanness about like how annoying and frustrating computers and phones can be, and noticing, oh yeah, there's frustration. It's not like because of the, just all that you said, there is this conditioning in my 20 plus whatever years of Buddhist practice where it's like not being a good Buddhist right now because I'm fill in the blank, mad at this thing or upset with this thing or judging this thing. But it's like this tenderness for the messiness of being human.
Exactly. Yes. Tenderness for the messiness of being human.
But this stillness and the openness just really was inspiring. And if I can just say quickly, you probably know Derek Scott passed away. He's an internal family systems teacher who was my first teacher, who died last weekend. And I've been surprisingly emotional about it. We had a little IFS community gathering last night to honor his life. And he made one last video saying, I'm going to be dead in 3 weeks. And it's incredibly inspiring. It's available on YouTube. And it has shifted my experience this last week, that felt connected somehow to everything you just said. So I'm not making sense now, but thank you.
No, I imagine I haven't listened to the video, but I imagine it's powerful. There's
It's
something
so beautiful.
about facing death that makes people just toss away all the extra stuff and just speak from their heart.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll check it out. Derek Scott, most recent or something like that, probably can go into the search engine and see what comes up.
Yeah.
But yes, I think because that's I can't exactly draw the connection either, but it's that sort of free fall that you're in before death when that you if you know your death is coming. I mean, this is just not always we're not always given that, but if you know your death is coming and you know actually you have no control over what's going to happen, there can be profound letting go. And a lot of illusions can just be stripped away very fast about who you are and what matters. Just all just parachuting out. Oh, forget the parachute. You're actually just dropping without the parachute, And that ground's coming up to meet you. And just something profound can let go and clarity can just arise. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, tenderness towards the messiness of being human. We have this whole psyche that is like operating on all these levels at once. It has to like negotiate survival, and it has to like find its place in a kind of world of attraction and sexuality, and it has to negotiate kind of power relationships, and it has to negotiate love relationships, which aren't necessarily about attraction and sexuality, but they are kind of, and it has to negotiate how to talk to people and not talk to people. It has to negotiate how it understands things to work. And it's like working on all these levels at once and dealing with its own proclivities. It's like amazing how complicated it is to be this human animal. So, yes, tenderness. Catalina, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for this talk. Very intense. And it touched also, like I had been kind of in the verge of like going into that place of acceptance of whatever it is. And in a way, there is something in me like say no, and another part of me is like, why not? Why don't I can accept whatever it comes, and especially not being in control. So I'm experiment of being very aware about that. Usually my feelings of anxiety and a kind of like there's a revolution in myself, or like speed, like that I feel it here. I am aware that is my need of being in control, that things go the way that I want, and at the same time I'm experimenting of how about if I let go, and accept the chaos, accept totally the chaos, and accept and being able to really get into the present. And it's a shocking feeling when I am able to let go and go into the present. It's kind of like going to a different dimension, because in the present usually things are okay, things like I am safe, I'm in the right place. So yeah, I'm like an experimenting that possibility to be in the present. And I know that it takes time and practice and practice and practice, but possible. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, like your talk, it's, if I feels to me like is being able to be in that place that you say that is inside all of us, and it doesn't have the conditions, but at the same time is very aware of how much condition we have that make us want to things going this way. Yeah, I just want to share.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Something in us loves a problem. Something in us wants to protest and resist things as they are. That's one of the things that arises within us over and over again, that kind of protest, resistance. You can get curious about it, the lack of acceptance, what that is, what that's like. Begin to be curious about it. That's all I'll say for now. Okay, Anna. You gotta unmute, I think.
Oh, yeah. I was just
Yeah.
saying thank you so much. It was just such a gorgeous talk, and the dropping fruit from the tree was just a beautiful metaphor for just kind of the fruit of the practice, and just kind of trust that it'll happen. Yeah, the acceptance is where I'm working. It's just that's what I'm here for this life. I feel very strongly. That's 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 the work, you
All
know.
right.
So I just really loved, especially what really especially brought me almost to tears was the idea of loving the messiness of the human experience. I think that in my stream, in the stream of Anna Sobel, it's like, where can I improve? Where can I tinker? What needs fixing? And that this is a new take on that. It's like, I guess I heard or misunderstood that you can't be enlightened with the kleshas. You have to like work on them and fix them. And that's the journey is like finding like where you get caught. And I guess I wasn't really sure what the path was out of it.
Yeah.
I just knew they couldn't be there when you're enlightened. So I guess I was like, oh no, let's work on, whatever it was that was arising. But maybe it's just like,
Right.
it's not a getting rid of.
Right. When you're trying to work on what's arising, who's doing that?
That's just it. That's exactly what you're bringing up. Like that, there's nobody at the wheel. There's no like little man in there. Like, there's no eye, there's no
Who's
self.
going to get improved into awakening? That's, I think, a big mistake to think that it's self-improvement that's going to lead us to awakening, getting it all right, getting all the virtues in place, getting all, and I admit there's a lot of that in Buddhism. There's a lot of that kind of rhetoric. But when you go deep with it, you start to see that actually what undoes suffering and actually creates genuine kinds of beautiful traits in a human being is like the heart that becomes big enough to love the mess, to love what arises. That rather than kind of getting more and more kind of dogged to become something, the craving for becoming is one of those defilements, one of those kleshas you referred to.
Yeah.
And that's what it points to, is the craving for becoming is, I want to be this rather than what I am. That's in essence the craving for becoming.
Okay.
And so to turn it around, like as a question, what am I? What's actually here? Before you want to become something different, what's actually here? Which is why I've liked the idea of waking up from trance. They were like, we've become entranced. It's not like we have to create a perfect self. You have to wake up to what's actually here. Works better for me that way. It relaxes something.
And how much more so with regards to others and how we view others.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
idea of like loving the suchness of others.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. And having there be room for us to be irritated with them anyway. Yeah. So thank you, Anna. There's something else you said that I was gonna send me off in another direction, and now I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come to me. So anybody else? We got a little time here. When?
So how do you know if you're making any headway? And the reason why I ask is, how do you stay stoked? How do you stay fired up if you've kind of look at it and like, well, I'm kind of practicing for 40 years or a long time, and I'm still like, cursing at people behind the wheel and, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, I mean, all the stuff that I look at some of the, I mean, I feel like, shouldn't I have figured that out by now? That's what I'm running into
Oh,
at this
okay.
late stage.
Right. So notice the judgment that's coming up in your mind about yourself. It's just judgment coming up in the mind. The idea you should be differently than you are. You should have gotten it by now, Win. You're obviously a complete loser if you haven't. Those thoughts are just conditioned judgments. And you don't actually know where you are in terms of you being a tree setting fruit and blossoming and setting. You actually don't have a clue when it comes right down to it. And yet that judgment, it wants to measure you against the goal that it thinks it knows what it is, but it doesn't actually. So what I'd suggest is let go of the idea that you've got to rid yourself of getting mad behind the wheel and wake up to it. Like open your heart to it. Just see, okay, frustration. They're suffering. I've taught this, and it's worth teaching again and again, this phrase that's all over the Buddha Suttas, simple phrase. This is suffering. Idam dukkam. Idam dukkam. It means this is suffering. And it's a mindfulness bell. It's like, okay, here it is. Suffering has arisen. That is very different than the mind thinking, I've got to eradicate this in myself. To be an enlightened being, an arhat someday, I've got to get rid of that. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. The way that it works is you notice that frustration has arisen. And if you can at all point your attention to its quality of not being self. Nobody chose that frustration behind the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go, what do I want to do here? I really want to get mad. I really want to be frustrated because it feels awful, and I feel like feeling awful right now. Nobody actually made that choice. Something in you did, but it's not like that. So this sort of conditioning arises in the mind. There's space to notice it. You can notice it just as, okay, frustration. This is suffering. And what I love about this is suffering is because it opens my heart when I do that with myself. This is suffering. I don't blame myself. I don't judge myself. I don't say, Mark, you should have figured out how to not suffer by now. Instead, I just see the simple fact. This is suffering. There is a conscious, sensitive being who's suffering right now. And that's it. That's all that needs to be known. And that in itself arouses this presence of compassion, this sort of tenderness for the mess that it is to be human. And if you keep doing that, it will unravel things. But don't trust the part of you that wants to measure how far you've unraveled and how good you're doing at it. That doesn't help at all. But we're deeply conditioned to do that. We're deeply conditioned to be constantly checking, how far have I gotten? Where am I on the path? Am I making any progress? All those sorts of things. There's something in the mind that thinks it's going to figure that out and be relieved to know I've made some progress. Good. It's possible. Do you understand what I mean? The journey is always back to now.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is this is me playing victim a little more, or I feel like we've been sold that whole thing, like a little bit by the traditions, the spiritual traditions, a little bit. They were selling that.
Right, they're selling that. They're selling that. They're selling religious traditions, sell their teachings to egos.
Well put. Well
They
put.
do. They do. And I don't know any religious tradition that doesn't do that to some degree, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in those traditions, there are enough individuals who have seen their way through it. And if you're lucky, or if you have good karma, you will encounter individuals who have seen their way through that kind of thing, you know, the kind of selling it to egos that religion often does. And they'll help you to the genuine thing, because those are also a part of spiritual traditions and religions. There are also individuals who have found their way to the genuine thing, the pearl of great price. So hopefully you'll find one and they'll set you straight. All right. So everybody be well.